One of the amazing things about living in Michigan, especially in the summertime, is that we can take advantage of all the beautiful little cities and towns all along the lakes. And when we think about Michigan and when we think about how other people perceive Michigan, that Pure Michigan campaign was really iconic. That started years ago with the voice of Tim Allen and the beautiful music in the background and just showcasing the very best of what Michigan has to offer to visitors from all around the world. Well, there is a new voice of the Pure Michigan campaign. Go ahead and take a listen.
Fresh coastlines, flavors, and family traditions.
In Traverse City, there's always a fresh spin on a perfect trip.
But what's even more refreshing?
Being exactly where you should be. Comfortable in the moment.
And wide open to new possibilities, just like Traverse City.
Because keeping it fresh is always welcome.
In Pure Michigan.
And here she is, that silky smooth voice of Jessica Care Moore,
Yeah.
Detroit poet. It is so good to see you.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
in real life.
congratulations.
Thank you. It's been amazing. The response to the Pure Michigan campaign has been extraordinary.
I mean, when we think about iconic campaigns like that,
Yes.
and starting with Tim Allen's voice, your edition of it, how did this even come to be?
They reached out to me. It was actually right before the new year. Someone from the marketing campaign reached out and said, our client, Pure Michigan, is trying to get in touch with you. We want to speak with you about doing some work with Pure Michigan. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a voiceover artist. I mean, I do voiceovers, but I'm not usually interested just in reading copy.
Right.
And so the conversation became a lot deeper when I was like, well, if I'm going to write about this city and this state that I grew up in, that I live in, then I want to write it. And so I wrote, so I'm clear that I'm not just the voice, I'm also writing the campaign. And so I wrote, it's a series that I'm doing, a poetry with I Am Detroit Summer, which was close to my heart.
Yeah.
Which was really not hard to write because I love the city so much, but I really wanted this piece to be inclusive for people to really see themselves in it in a different way than they maybe haven't in the past with Pure Michigan. And the response on the street has been people walking up to me saying, I've never seen myself before. Thank you for writing this. Thank you for this ad. Like it's been.
They feel like they're a part of it.
Yeah, so it's a lot deeper than I thought it would be, and I'm excited. It's a series, so there's the voiceover work that I'm doing that you hear like across the country. You hear the voice, but the series for Michigan, for Detroit, and now I'm working on fall and winter. And so I think I'm just bringing that personal voice. They wanted that first person voice. They didn't want it to be, ad sounding. They wanted it to be
Yeah, I mean, just what
true
you said
poetry.
about reading copy. And you
Yeah.
are a poet. Give people a sense of
Yeah.
your background if they don't know. You and I met a
Yeah,
couple
we
of years
met-
ago
we
doing
did, during the
interviews
COVID
before.
on
Exactly.
Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm a poet and writer. I have 5 books published. My most recent book is on HarperCollins. We Want Our Bodies Back. I do a lot of music. I produce Black Woman Rock, so I work with a lot of musicians. I just sold out the Detroit Film Theater with my rock concert during the Concert of Colors. We're annual here in Detroit, so I do a lot of music, jazz, soul, hip hop. And I write books and plays, and so that's what I do. But I'm based right here in Detroit.
And so to be able to take this to a different level and to
Yes.
be able to expose people to a
Yes.
different kind of prose, I think, than what we're used to. And I love how you said that people see themselves as part of this campaign.
And I put my father, first, like, the first line is like back on my daddy's ride, riding to that water. Like that's how I grew up. I grew up in it was a Cadillac. I grew up in my daddy's Cadillacs, driving to Belle Isle. Like that was like the thing. Ice cream cones, back of the Cadillac. And, we didn't even have seatbelts then. It was like, I'm grown. And we made it. And so just that love of the summer, like being outside. And I remember personally, I go up north. I've been to Sleeping Bear. I traveled to Idlewild. So I'm familiar with up north as well. And I wanted to be inclusive. I wanted to see brown and black people in the Pure Michigan ads, and that's on purpose. Like I went to the Movement Festival. I'm on stage with Carl Craig and John Dixon. That's on purpose.
Yeah.
The congregation. That's a neighborhood coffee spot.
Oh, absolutely. I've been there a couple
That's my
times.
spot.
Yeah.
That's my neighborhood. So I wanted to go for their house music night. I just wanted to show like how diverse our city is, and I don't think we get to see that enough, especially in an ad campaign. So it's a very personal work for me. It wasn't just about reading some copy. It was about really trying to write Detroit's story.
And live it, and live Michigan. And I think we all have those stories about what our first memories are in connection to it, not only just to nature, to the water. The first time I went up north, I was 7 years old, and we stayed in this really tiny cabin on Lake Leelanau.
Beautiful.
And that was the first time we went and we picked cherries. It was the first time you just stayed up late at night, really sandy and dirty and messing in the water.
Yes.
And doing those things. And that's that is what evokes, and that's what this campaign, I think, has evoked for so many people, even going back to the beginning, and the evolution of it is so important.
Yeah, I think so. And they wanted to bring a different kind of voice, and that the city's changing, and there's lots of new voices. I just believe in like showcasing that. Like, you can't, you know, it's cool. Like Tim Allen did it for a long time, and he's still in there with the ads with me. It's like me and Tim Allen's voice together. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But we're not in the studio together.
Right, you're recording you're recording
separately.
your own.
But at the same time, it is important to be inclusive and bring more people in. So we're just trying to bring more Detroiters in, and also showing them, like, I'm excited about the fall poem because, you know, we're headed up north, and I want to seeing me up north is important too, right?
Can you give us a couple lines?
Oh,
Maybe
I don't have the fall.
Something. Or?
The fall poem. You know, one of the lines, and hopefully it makes the cut, is watching my mother climb Sleeping Bear Dunes for the very first time. My mother had never been up north. I took my mother up north for the first time because I'm taking my son.
How old was she?
My mother was not. When she did it for the first time, probably close to 70.
Yeah.
She was close to 70 years old. She climbed that dang on dune, you know.
Which is not easy. Everyone's like, you should go climb the dunes. I'm like, do you really want to climb?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an active. I loved it. I'm running up the dunes with my son. But for her to do it, it was like a big accomplishment. And so I put that in the poem. And I mentioned Idlewild, which is close to my heart as well, which is a place that, you know, it's historically black, you know, a lot of ownership there, and I wanted to make sure we didn't pass over Idlewild. And so what I love about Pure Michigan is they're allowing my voice to be heard, and I'm able to say, well, what about this? And they're like, okay, you know, you're not telling me how to feel. And that's what's making it important. That's what's making people connect to it, because it's from an authentic space.
Authentic space and also authentic voice. Sometimes when people ask, like, how do you become a voisover artist? And I know that that's not your primary, but your voice is so resonant.
Thank you.
And it's got such a unique quality to it. How do you use it in that way? Because that is also a bit of an art and talent.
And I use it as a woman to break through, because I'm a woman that came up in hip hop. I came up in hip hop, so I've recorded with lots of rappers, from Nas to Common to Talib Kweli, Jeezy. I worked with all these hip hop artists, and I was a woman. When I voiced, what's funny, I came up in TV news, and so my dream was to really be a news anchor and be a news writer, and that's what I thought I was going to do. But now I'm using my voice with poetry to push through in a different way, in a very male-dominated, like that industry. Even with poetry, you would think it's mostly a lot. It's not. It's a lot of guys. It's a lot of men getting published more than women, and so even in that world, I'm always pushing through with my voice, the heaviness of it that I was nervous and made me shy when I was a little girl. And
is now the perfect jewel of it.
Yeah, and I was scared to raise my hand because it was this deep when I was like in 7th grade. I was like, oh my God.
Isn't that funny? The things that make us uncomfortable about ourselves end up being the greatest gifts.
Absolutely. And so I just tap in and I use it to push forward and say, I'm going to take this voice. And I use it when I'm doing my jazz concerts, and you know, but I had to grow into my voice. Yeah, and get comfortable with it.
Could you, just for the last 30 seconds that we have, for people who have to present and are very nervous, because people don't usually like to do that or speak, or is there any tips that you can give us if we have to go speak in front of somebody or a couple of people about finding our voice, or being actually maybe comfortable with their voice?
Comfortable with their voice. Yeah. I always find that it's an old trick, but I always find a person in the audience to connect with. So instead of like looking at this huge audience, and I was just at the Blue Note Jazz Festival, like in front of thousands of people. But I always just find like 1 or 2 people that are close to me, and I just talk to them. And so you take your audience, it looks big, but just make it small. And make it just like, just find that one person, and you're just talking to that girl or that guy in that audience, and that becomes your center, and it centers you in a way where it's a conversation. So. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thanks for this conversation, and I can't wait to hear more of your writing.
Coming.
More to come in the fall and the winter in the Pure Michigan campaign. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really great to
I'm
see
really
you.
Excited.
Jessica Care Moore, the new voice of the Pure Michigan campaign, with us here on the Daily Plus Live.